Hey, what is up, folks? How's it going? This is Watch. Hope you guys are all doing well. And today we're going to be taking a look at the Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra and directly comparing the camera performance to the 13 Pro Max iPhone. Now, specifically, we're going to be taking a look at the rear array of cameras in video and stills capabilities to determine whether the latest generation of Samsung smartphone is up there with the best that Apple has to offer. Now, as you may be aware, that the S22 Ultra isn't a whole lot different from the previous gen S21 Ultra. Basically, Samsung has introduced some software tweaks to make the camera a little bit more reliable and accurate in terms of its image processing capabilities. They've also widened the main telephoto and periscope camera by about 58%, resulting in a little bit better, smoother video capturing capabilities thanks to that wider angle, as well as its auto framing capabilities. Furthermore, in terms of our initial impression thus far of the S22 Ultra, it pretty much mirrors my experience with the previous gen S21 compared to the iPhone 13 Pro Max. In stills mode, when you're shooting in its 108 megapixel mode compared to the iPhone's 12 megapixels, you are going to see a little bit more fine details, especially when you zoom in to the images. This is obviously the result of having 9 times the resolution as the iPhone, but in reality, when you're viewing and sharing these images online, you're probably not going to be pixel peeping that much, and viewed as a whole, both smartphones essentially bring out at the same level of clarity and sharpness. Now, like previous Samsung flagships, you have a greater zoom capability on the S22 Ultra, with not only having an additional 3 times optical zoom camera, but also a periscope with a 10 times optical zoom, and in combination with the digital zoom capabilities, you have the potential zoom range of up to 100 times within the smartphone itself. That's several times more than the 3x optical zoom of the 13 Pro Max, which gives the S22 Ultra some serious peeping Tom capabilities and really allowing you to see faraway objects in great level of detail and fidelity that is simply impossible for the iPhone to see. Now, in terms of color rendition, it's pretty much what we encountered in the past, where the iPhone tends to favor a more warmer color balance and overall saturation, so you could see that your photos always tend to be more in that warmer side compared to the more cooler color balance setting that typically is processed on the Samsung. So that's pretty much inherently the case that you can see on some of these photo examples. I think in reality, your white balance should be a little bit more neutral, which you can definitely do, but on the default app, this is pretty much what Samsung and Apple like to favor. Now, in terms of the low light capabilities, I specifically tested both smartphones in night mode, since that's pretty much what I'm going to be specifically shooting them at. And Samsung has introduced a couple of new features in their nightography mode, specifically with the stills capability. They actually combined blocks of pixels with that larger 108 megapixel sensor in order to create a larger photo sight, thus gathering in more light, more photons to deliver a little bit less noise in night mode settings. But in night mode settings, we're pretty much seeing the same trend that we've seen in past Samsung flagship smartphones, where it actually delivers some punchy looking contrast ratios, really kind of crushed blacks with still preserving some details in the shadows, and fairly aggressively bright highlight information. And it does a decent job in terms of retaining some highlight information, but this is all in the post-processing. Sometimes it's a hit and miss, and there's actually situations where you can see right over here where the lit sign in the background is actually exposed correctly on the iPhone. We can see that highlight information on the iPhone versus that information is blown out on the Samsung. Now, on the iPhone 13 Pro Max, you can see that the shadow information is a little bit brighter than what we encounter with the S22 Ultra. That could be a good thing if you want to see actually more shadow information, but you do kind of see that it's not as sharp and as punchy in night mode compared to the initial images coming out of the Samsung. Now, one of the things that you're going to notice on the iPhone is its lens flaring issues, particularly in night mode. If you have a street lamp that's super bright, you are going to notice that flare is a lot more apparent on the iPhone compared to the Samsung. That could mean that the S22 Ultra has better optics to eliminate flaring, or its post-production is a little bit better in terms of taking out some of those flares. But regardless of that, that's an inherent feature that you are going to notice in low light situations like this, both in terms of stills and video. And speaking of video, it's more or less the same story as we encountered in the past, where the Samsung has a couple of interesting features, including 8K at 24 frames per second video capturing capabilities, which is cool for bragging rights, or if you want to crop in, do some digital zooming for a 4K or 1080p project. That's definitely an added level of flexibility, not available on the iPhone, which maxes out at 4K 60 FPS. Most of our filming was done at that setting, and with all those features, including auto adjustment for your frame rate to improve low light performance, and as we mentioned before, a wider field of view to enhance walking shots or to stabilize your video footage a little bit further. I still think the iPhone is still in a league of its own and still the king of video capabilities. It has a greater dynamic range, sharpness, clarity levels, and with the ability to shoot 10-bit Dolby Vision ProRes, you have that professional workflow advantage as well. And if you take a look at some of our example shots that we see over here, even with the low light improvements in video mode, the S22 Ultra is still presenting a decent amount of noise level in the shadow and darker portions of the video footage, which is simply not there on the 13 Pro Max. And it's honestly pretty shocking how good the iPhone is in terms of delivering video performance, both in terms of good lighting conditions, but especially in these low light situations where it's pretty much giving you large sensor mirrorless video camera capabilities in a smartphone. Now, in summary, I think the S22 Ultra is ultimately kind of disappointing. Yes, there's some minor improvements here and there, but ultimately it's pretty much the same smartphone Samsung has been making for the past 2 or 3 years. And when you take a look at what the iPhone delivers at its stills resolution, which is 12 megapixels compared to 108, I think it does a great job in terms of an overall camera package, and I would still prefer shooting with it, mainly because of its video capabilities are just a whole lot more superior than what most smartphones are delivering, certainly what Samsung is offering with their latest flagship. But in terms of stills capabilities, I definitely think the Samsung is a little bit more flexible, certainly more capable in terms of its zooming capabilities and overall resolution. But as a whole, I still think that the iPhone is king of the camera smartphone. Now, we also have a battery life comparison between these two smartphones, so if you're interested in that, check out the description down below or visit the channel. But if you haven't done so already, please make sure you subscribe, have post notifications turned on, and like and share this video. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you real soon in the next one. Take care.